Welcome to the Your Life Unchained podcast. I am your host, Rick Sheninger, and it is with great pleasure that today I introduce our guest, BabbleOn Brooke. Welcome to the show, BabbleOn.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Rick. It's great to be here.
Super excited. BabbleOn has an incredible story, and I can't wait for her to share it with all of us. Just an incredible journey that she's been on from Hollywood and being in different commercials and all kinds of things on stage to some challenging times. I'm not going to spoil the surprise, but some challenging times that she's worked through, and it's just made her the person that she is, which is an amazing person. And I can't wait to share her story. So BabbleOn, so happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you again for having me. It's really nice to be here with you, Rick.
So tell us, you got your start in front of the camera in some ways. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So my background comes from being a stage and TV actor. So like you said, a lot of theater. I toured with musical theater, like national tours that you would go to in your hometowns where we would come in, that kind of thing. And commercials, odds are I've been in your living room many times for a variety of products and brands. And I was also an international award-winning host. So a lot of red carpet, that sort of world, and a Fortune 500 spokesperson. So that is my background in terms of entertainment.
That's exciting. And at one point, I think you lived in Philadelphia, did you not?
Yes, so that's where I'm from, born and raised, and extremely proud Philadelphian. We have that in common.
Yeah, so what's super interesting about that, I'll just share with everybody a quick tidbit. I used to work for a company called Trader Joe's. You may or may not have heard of it. And there is a location in Center City, Philadelphia. And Brooke and I discovered that she was shopping there at the same time that I worked there. So it's very likely that our paths crossed and we didn't even know it. We didn't even officially meet until Clubhouse just a few months ago.
Yep. So how many years, 15 plus years later? Isn't that insane?
It's just unbelievable. I can't even fathom that.
I know. And it really shows you how small the world is, doesn't it?
It does. Because I mean, you live out on the West Coast now, and I live outside of Atlanta, Georgia now. So I mean, we're in some ways worlds apart, and yet here we were, crossed paths, didn't even know it, and now we've crossed paths again. And
yep. And I still love Trader Joe's. I
do too. And
Trader Joe's needs to sponsor your podcast.
Yes, absolutely. I love it more now that I'm not working for them anymore.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I see that.
So going back to that, you moved from Philadelphia out to the West Coast, out to California. Mm-hmm. And that's when you ran into a challenge. Is that right?
Yes, I had already been out here. I come from Philadelphia, but I had done, like I said, the touring thing, and I lived in London and New York, and then eventually moved out to Los Angeles. And I was out here for maybe, I think five plus years. And I was in a car accident. On those of you who know Los Angeles, I was on the 101 just outside of Hollywood, and I was in a 4-car pileup. Which I have to make this point because I am an advocate for this. It was caused by a distracted driver, and we don't know exactly what that person was doing. They said that they had just flown in from somewhere, I think they were from England, and they rented a car and they were tired and they were going out like on this joyride to see the city, and they were looking around. They weren't really paying attention. So they were the first car, and then the rest of the cars was just, what it was. I'm very thankful that I was in an SUV because my SUV was totaled, but had it not been for that, I think, we wouldn't be talking today. So I am, like I said, I'm an advocate for distracted driving. It breaks my heart when I see people doing that on live streams, or when I hear people doing that on Clubhouse. They say, oh, I'm driving, so, this, that, or the other. And all it takes is 1 second. That's it. That's all it takes. And even if you're the best driver, you don't know if everyone around you is, if they're as aware as you are. So I think, that's just ultra important to always be completely at attention when you're behind the wheel, for your sake and for the sake of others. So I was in that car accident, and the crazy thing is that I walked away from it. So I was in tremendous pain, but nothing was broken, and wound up, going to the ER and all that. But I was, for the most part, it seemed good. And so I started physical therapy. And for a year following that, I was in physical therapy 6 days a week, because the pain was excruciating. And we were taking care of that. Within that year, I started to have difficulty speaking and even breathing. And no one could seem to give me an answer as to why. So I was sent off to this specialist, then that specialist. And I was in that going into the second year, it was upwards of close to 100 doctors that were in on this whole thing, trying to figure everything out.
Wow.
And because specialists are great, but they're specialists for a reason. They specialize on one part of the body. So if you exhibit symptoms that you would think are, for my case, breathing, I went to a number of pulmonologists, because you would think, oh, well, that's coming from the lungs. Well, it wasn't. So they look at the lungs and they go, okay, lungs are okay, bye. Or hey, go over to my friend, this other pulmonologist. But that's not where the root of the issue is. So if we're not finding the root, what do we do?
Right.
So this took forever. My difficulty was escalating, and it was escalating quickly, to the point where I would stand up. I would wake up in the morning, I'd stand up, and my heart rate would shoot up to 160, and I would fall down.
Oh, wow.
And then I would crawl to my phone to where I would call 911. And this happened over and over. So I was hospitalized many times, elongated hospitalizations, and wound up having 6 neck surgeries. And still, these were all just Band-Aids. They couldn't figure things out. And when I was hospitalized, they would put me in the cardiac unit because the way my heart was operating. But again, the problem wasn't in the heart. So this all happened over the course of 3 total years following the accident. This was my life. And it was a nightmare. So finally, the decision was made 3 years into it for me to become housebound. They figured out what was going on. And it was that, if you've ever heard of the vagus nerve, that was compromised. And it isn't the vagus that we all know and like. It's actually vagus, and that's the main nerve that runs throughout the body. It connects to all the major systems, including cardiovascular, respiratory, everything, all the important ones. So when that would become agitated, my body would go haywire. And transit was one of the things that would agitate it. So if someone were to take me to the doctor, being in the motion of the car would agitate the nerve. So this took a really long time to see. It wasn't something that was showing up on MRIs or CAT scans or any of that. And I had plenty. So finally, when this was discovered, I became housebound. And for the next several years, I was, just like everyone has been for the year of the pandemic, I was inside 4 walls. Only in my case, I was laying flat on a massage table, staring at the ceiling, wondering why I was here. And my partner quit his job, became my full-time caretaker. He would spoon feed me, take me to the bathroom, read to me, all of that. And then I received home health care 6 days a week. A doctor would come for anywhere between 4 to 6 hours. He would hook me up to all these various machines. And in that time, I became estranged from my family because they were on the other side of the country in Philadelphia, and they couldn't understand why I wasn't able to be talking to them on the phone because I couldn't talk. They didn't understand any of that. I went bankrupt because of all the medical bills. It cost about, well, I won't say it publicly, but it cost well into the 6 digits to keep me alive. And I became suicidally depressed. because I was in such a dark place and I felt like there was no reason for me to be here. So that that's what many of those years were like.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. And I mean, you spent all that time, on your back. You couldn't do anything. And I mean, did you ever think you were going to get past that point?
For a long time, no. It just continued to get worse and worse because one thing compounded on top of another, right? And the mental and emotional toll. I always say this, as hard as things were physically, and if you can imagine, I would actually challenge everyone right now who's listening. If you would close your eyes and take a deep breath, we can all do that together. Like, it feels so good, doesn't it? Just to take a nice deep breath. Now, do it again and imagine that it's not happening. You cannot get that air in. That was every breath for me, every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month of multiple years. And it was exhausting. And as hard as that was, though, physically, the toughest part was the mental and emotional side of it, and not having the people that I always thought would be there, not having their support, not having them in the picture. And I was in such a dark place, and no, there was no light at the end of the tunnel. So for me, I had to grasp at straws. And the two things I did was, number one, I created BabbleOn Brooke. And to me, Babylon means keep going. I had to come up with some kind of mantra to tell myself to inspire me. And as someone who always loved talking and who spoke for a living, now all of a sudden that was gone. I couldn't even communicate to my partner to tell him how I was feeling or what I needed. So we created a language of blinking. So he would ask me questions, and one blink meant yes, two meant no, three meant I love you. So that's how I communicated for quite some time. And the other thing that got me through was my faith. I mean, thank goodness I have strong faith. And so those were the two things that really helped. And then I did, over time, I began to shift my mindset. But oh my God, it took forever. And one of the things that helped with that was I took to live streaming. This was at the same time that Periscope came out,
Oh
which was
yeah, I remember that.
Twitter's live streaming arm. So I was like, all right, okay, let me check this out and see what it's all about. So what we did was we rigged an iPad so that it could basically like levitate above me while I was laying on the massage table. And then I would go on there and I would watch other people. So I got to see the world, which was such a gift because I'd be laying there just always staring at the ceiling. Now, instead, I could see the world. I could see people in Australia, in Japan, in England, wherever. I could be there with them. So that was helpful. It was also sad though, because then as soon as it was over, I would go, oh my gosh, well, I'm not there. So I started live streaming and I would do it through blinking. I would blink to them and we taught them what that meant. Over time, as I began to be able to speak again, then of course I was, telling them what was going on. But we would show them the doctor's visits. People, tens of thousands of people would tune in to watch my doctor's appointments when he would be here. And it was just wild. And it that grew quickly. And what I found was they were actually looking to me for hope, which was insane because I was looking to them for the same thing.
Right.
And they really were my light at the end of the tunnel. They gave me a reason to want to be here. They became my why. And so the messages that I would get, and we had to get a PO box because people would send letters and things, and it was extraordinary, the outpouring of love from strangers around the world. And I thought, and people telling me also, oh my gosh, I've had suicidal thoughts, or I'm dealing with this physical ailment or whatever it is, and I don't think I can do it anymore. But now I've seen you and what you're dealing with and how you're triumphing, and now I feel like I can keep going. I can babble on. I mean, it gives me chills still to think about it. And so that's really, I thought, okay, I have to do this for them. I can't give up. I can't give up. I have to get through this to show them what's possible.
That's interesting because I bet a lot of people can relate to any period of struggle in their life where if there's been somebody that has been their lifeline. I can't give up because of so and so.
Yes.
Give up because of my son, my daughter, my spouse, my mother, whatever. Fill in the blank. But it's so often the case, and yet it's also so often the case, like you mentioned, the other way around, where we are in that place of struggle and we really need something to hold on to outside of that, and they're also looking to us for guidance or for support. In the case of a child, they're looking to us for for everything. For a younger child, they're looking to us for protection and for food and for shelter and all the basic things, but also love and caring and just being there for them.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes that's our reason for our own perseverance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think I know that for me, I had been looking online for some time to see if there was anyone else ever around the world that had gone through what I was going through to the extent that I was going through it, where it was something, the same kind of physical route. And I couldn't find anything. And I that made it so much more difficult because it wasn't something like, oh, this is a broken leg, or even something as, terrible as, let's say, cancer or something like that, where you can find a community of people that understand and you have resources. This was something so just strange and also unseen to the naked eye. So people couldn't, understand or relate. So without finding someone that I could look to for inspiration, what I didn't realize was happening at the time was that I became that person for others. And I really now, even though I'm still, yes, going through things, I look at it as a gift. And that's a big thing that helped, was shifting my mindset, because what an honor and a blessing to be able to be that person for others. Whereas before I really felt, I was in such a pit of self-pity and feeling bad for myself and all the things in life I've missed out on, while everyone else was settling down and furthering their career and having kids and traveling the world and all that stuff. I was just, it's like my life was put on hold. But it really wasn't, also because I was learning so much that I could then help others with.
So part of that was that you were adapting to the situation so that you could continue to grow. But let me ask another question, and maybe you don't know the answer to this, but which came first, changing the mindset or the light at the end of the physical tunnel?
I've been asked that so many times. It's really tough because, to be completely honest, it was such a long span of time. I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary of the accident. So a lot of it blurs together. And I've tried to figure that out because I want to know. I think that it was very much, yeah, chicken and the egg, but it was also whichever one did come first. Let's say I would see just a little progress physically, like the tiniest thing, the most minute detail. I would cling to that. I would cling to that and I would celebrate that, internally, and just, okay, that was a win. So it was my reaction, my response to the physical, I think, that then, okay, now I'm shifting my mindset without even realizing it. I'm starting to go down that path. And now, okay, so the next physical thing, like, what's the next goal? And it could be, it took me years to be able to, I remember this was a big one, to be able to drink a glass of water, like to do this, to take a sip of water on my own without having someone else hold it up for me, took years. And when I finally did that, that was, it was like you had taken me to Disneyland, like, and so I held on to that and celebrated it really. Yeah.
So it may have been a combination of little victories, both physical and mental, because I'm sure there was a celebration when you figured out how to rig up the iPad above your head. I mean, that was more of a mental victory than it was a physical victory, because it gave you a gateway, it gave you a door to the outside that you didn't have before.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I'll tell you what, to get to that point with the glass of water or with anything, I did have to tell myself that it was going to happen, that it was possible. And even believing that something like that was possible, it took me a long time to get there.
Yeah.
I wish I could be one of those people, you hear these people online and they go, oh, I just shifted my mindset. And the next day I manifested this. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, that's completely possible. I believe in the power of manifestation.
Right.
But I think what a lot of people aren't sharing is that takes practice. And
Yes.
practice takes time, and it also takes a full belief that's even possible.
Mhm.
And so I wish I could say, oh yeah, in 2013 I felt this, and the next month I felt that, or even the next year, 2014, I felt that. No, it was like, man, this whole journey started in 2011, and I, oh my God, I don't even know how many years it took to finally start to see shifts. And so it definitely took time, but I know that the mindset was playing a role, like that entire time without me realizing it, both good and bad, a lot of bad,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, and you make a good point about the mindset. So many people refer to it as just flipping the switch, but it's just not that easy.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Exactly. It takes practice. Well, it's just like anything. I like to refer to it as the brain gym. You're
Yeah.
taking your brain to the gym. You wouldn't expect to go to the gym tomorrow and all of a sudden, like, you're working out your arms and you have these big guns the next day. It's not how it works.
Right.
So it's the same with our brain. The beauty, I think, is that unlike physical, muscles that you can see, with the brain, I feel like, let's say you take a break from the mindset stuff, it's that much quicker to flip that switch once you've had the practice. If you get out of practice, as opposed to building, the external muscles.
Right.
So, yeah, mindset's the greatest gift, I believe. When you're intentional with it, when you choose to be positive with it, oh my gosh, it infiltrates every area of your life, doesn't it? Like,
Yes, absolutely.
fantastic. Yeah.
Everything from imposter syndrome, we've talked about before, and confidence, and everything somehow comes back to mindset. Even physical challenges come back to mindset.
Totally. Yep.
There's that old saying, whether you believe you can or you can't, then you're right.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Yep. So let's talk in a little bit more practical terms. For those who are listening, what are some tips that may help them get to that point of shifting their mindset? Maybe they're in a dark place, or maybe they're just feeling stuck. It doesn't have to be a dark place, just feeling stuck and not going or not growing anywhere. What are some tips that can help people kind of break that
Stuckness.
Yeah.
Something I love to share is, and this is something everyone can do, no matter what level they're at in terms of their mindset work, is to focus on what you can do, not what you can't. And also focus on what you do have, not what you don't. And start from the most basic things that you take for granted each and every day. So I always say, I've been ending every live stream since I started live streaming with this. I say, remember always, when you wake up breathing, it's a good day. Because it is. When I wake up and I take a deep breath, I feel like I've won the day, because I know what it's like not to be on the other side of that. And so starting first thing in the morning when you wake up, getting into that attitude of gratitude is extremely powerful. And it can take 20 seconds for you to wake up and go, oh, Thank you for the air in my lungs. Like, I'm so grateful for the air in my lungs, the roof over my head, the clothes on my back, the food on my plate. The energy in my body, the love in my heart, the peace in my soul, whatever it is. But these things that we take for granted, how amazing are they? Because not everyone has those things. You
True.
know, when you focus on that, you start to see, wow, I really do have a lot. I really am an abundant person. I have a lot going for me. I might not usually think so because maybe I don't have every Louis Vuitton bag I want, or I'm not driving, a Lambo, or I'm not vacationing in the Maldives, or whatever. We're always comparing ourselves to people online.
Right.
But you're so rich just by having the air in your lungs and having, again, the roof over your head, having clothes on your back, having food to eat. When you start to work out that muscle, you go to the brain gym and you work that out, what that does is it starts to open up a whole world of what you have, because now you're in practice. So then you start to go, I have a comfortable chair to sit in. I have this beautiful laptop and awesome technology to be able to connect with Rick, who's on the other side of the world. I have this, incredible phone. I have my glasses so I can see. I have whatever. You start to be aware of all the things you do have. And the same is true for what you can do. So maybe you can't run a marathon. Maybe you can't whatever, your whole list of things, but you can, most likely, most people can get up out of bed and walk to the bathroom. You can go and pour yourself a cup of water. And yes, I say water, I won't ever stop. Water. Like I can look outside. I can hear the birds chirping. I have my amazing sense of hearing. I can see the gorgeous sun in the sky, and the blue sky, and the clouds and the trees. All these simple things. You really got to dial it down to like brass tacks,
Right.
and start there. And then you'll begin to see all these things that fill up. I like to call it, it's like making deposits into your gratitude jar. And the more you do that, the more you'll see that there's so much more to be added, and now you don't feel so depleted. Now you don't feel quite so stuck, because you go, okay, well, wait, I've been hampering on the fact that I can't do this, or I don't have that, and that makes me feel so stuck. Well, instead, wait a second, I can do this, and I do have that, and I can do this, and I do have that. And it multiplies. Now that's going to unravel that stuck spot. So gratitude is giant in the grand scheme of things.
Nice. So I got two other questions for you, and then we're going to go ahead and sign off. But first question is, what would you recommend to that person who is trying to practice gratitude? Oh, I have this wonderful laptop, and then suddenly their laptop doesn't turn on anymore. Oh, I have this, I can breathe, and then they have, they get allergies and they're having trouble breathing with the pollen, for example. They're showing gratitude for these things, and then they get hampered. They get a roadblock because something happens to one or some of the things that they're expressing gratitude for.
Right.
How do you keep from backsliding?
That's a really good point. I love that. So first step would be, again, you're going back to all the things you do have to be grateful for, and not because, like you just said, now it's okay, I'm grateful for my laptop. Now the laptop doesn't work. What does work? Maybe your laptop doesn't, but does your phone, does your, wallet? Can you maybe consider going out and getting a new laptop? Does, your pen, could you like take notes in the meantime on paper while your laptop isn't working? What are the things that are working for you? What do you have? What can you do in the meantime? And also give yourself grace. Know that, no one's life is perfect. Things are going to happen. More often than not, things are happening, I believe, for a reason. So maybe that laptop stopped working so that you wouldn't see something you don't want to see on social media, or you had a call scheduled with someone and their energy was just off today. So you missed the call, but it protected you from that, going down that path.
Mm-hmm.
I like something that I use a lot when I talk with people is think about traffic. when you're in traffic, maybe that traffic's happening for a reason. That traffic could be preventing you from an accident that's further down the road. You don't know. So whenever something seems off, if you can start to shift your mind to even being grateful for it being off.
Yeah.
And that, it takes time, like we talked about. But
Right.
the more you go down that path, the more you practice, the more easily and quickly it'll come to you.
Love that. That's amazing. And then one last thing, because I know you've got to go, but when you get up in the morning, first thing you stagger into the bathroom, you're going to that bathroom mirror, and your hair is a mess and your eyes are half closed, and you see yourself in the mirror. What should you say?
Congratulations. Congratulations, you did it. You're amazing and I love you. Let's go make this a great day.
Absolutely. Love it.
Yeah.
Great place to end. What a wonderful conversation. Some amazing tips, some amazing strategies, and what an incredible story, incredible journey that you've been on. I can't thank you enough for being here today, Brooke. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been really nice.
This has been Your Life Unchained podcast. We'll see you next time.